Hi Year 11. This week we're going to be looking at Language Paper 1. Today we're going to look specifically at questions 3 and 4. In order to do this lesson you will need your Explorations in Creative Reading and Writing booklet, a pen and your English language book. You might want to pause this now so that you can go and get them. Okay, so this is what your booklet looks like if you're having difficulty finding it. So just to get us warmed up, we're going to do a quick quiz on language devices. I'd like you to answer these 5 questions in full sentences in your English book. So the questions are: what is a pronoun? What is pathetic fallacy? What is zoomorphism? Give an example of an exciting adjective, and what is personification? I'd like you to spend 5 minutes doing those questions. Okay, so here are the answers. A pronoun is used to replace a name, so they're words like he, she, it. Pathetic fallacy is where the weather reflects the mood. Zoomorphism is when humans are given animal qualities. An example of an exciting adjective is amazing. Personification is when non-living things are given living characteristics. Okay, so just as a reminder, English Language Paper 1, this is the Explorations in Creative Reading and Writing paper where you have one fiction extract. This will be something you've never seen before and you have 1 hour 45 minutes to do this exam. So question 1 is 4 marks. You just have to find 4 things in part of the extract. Question 2 is the language question, again worth 8 marks. The 2 we're looking at today are structure, question 3, which is worth 8 marks, and evaluation, question 4, which is worth 20 marks. We're going to be looking on Thursday and Friday at the creative writing question on this paper. So, the assessment objectives, what we're looking for is that you can read a text well and understand it. You can refer to parts of a text in your answer using quotes. You can look for meaning and ideas. You're able to understand the overall meaning and the construction of a text, so you know what the writer is doing, and you understand what the questions want from you. The bit that I've highlighted is the thing that we are going to be aiming for. So what I would like you to do first of all, if you have the booklet, you need to turn to page 17. If you've lost your booklet or you don't have it to hand, I've also attached on Show My Homework a copy of the extract, which you may want to pause the PowerPoint now to have a look at. So I would like you please to read this extract on page 17. I'd like you to take 15 minutes to read it. As you're reading, I would like you to think about what's interesting about how it's written, about how the bits of the text are put together, where they are placed. I'd like you to think about what language devices you can spot and what the effect of these is. So things like repetition, alliteration. And I'd like you to try and see what you can work out about the events being described. So we're going to be looking at this specifically first of all for structure, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second once you've had a read through. So I'd like you to spend 15 minutes now reading the extract. Pause the PowerPoint now in order for you to do that. Okay, so you should have read the extract now. So this is the structure question. It's worth 8 marks and we suggest that you spend about 10 minutes on this question. Before we can answer the question though, we need to realise what we mean by structure. So structural features are things like if there's a flashback or a flash forward, whether it's zoomed in or zoomed out on certain aspects, any repetition that we might see, any foreshadowing, and a change in focus, for example, from action to dialogue. Now that's certainly something you might have picked up on when you were reading through. We do have some dialogue in there. So question 3, structure. This is an example question. You need to think about the whole source. The text is from the beginning of a novel. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? You could write about what the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning, how and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops, and any other structural features that interest you. So in effect, what we're thinking about is the beginning of the text, as it develops, and the end of the text. You need to try and get 3 short paragraphs, one about each bullet point. Include quotes, but you don't need to discuss language devices. So a way of building up your answer is to use this writing frame. So you might start off by saying, at the beginning of the text, explain what happens, where you are in the text. So in our example here, it really focuses in on the fog. You might have picked things out like the personification of the fog, where it says it banked itself up like a wall on the second line. You might think about the alliteration that's used, the white woolly plain, closer and closer as it goes towards the house, which is in the second paragraph. There's more personification of the fog too, where it talks about curling across the golden square, how it came crawling, how it rolled slowly. That's also in the second paragraph. So we've got some ideas there. We've also got in the first paragraph a couple of similes, where the fog is like a wall, where it's like a great shimmering ice field. These all suggest that the fog is thick and strong. So at the beginning of the text, we're focusing on the fog. The fog seems very intimidating. So as the source develops, you could pick where we get into dialogue. So just underneath the second paragraph, we get some speech. That's what dialogue is. So you might think that that's interesting to talk about. So we start off with the fog. As the text develops, as the source develops, we have dialogue. We're getting interaction between the characters in the story. And you need to think about what that does, how that changes. If you think about the last line in the dialogue, look out, it's coming. We have those exclamatives there. They help to suggest that there is fear. We don't know what it is that's coming, and that makes the text more interesting. Then if we think about later in the extract, or if you want to go right to the end, you could talk about the fact that we've got this interesting line. We get more dialogue. We get this interesting line right at the end. We've laid the family ghost once and forever. That adds to the intrigue. Why does this finish there? What does that do to us, the reader? It makes us think that there's a greater sense of mystery. What I'd like you to do now is have a think about all the things you've noted, the things I've talked about, and I'd like you to have a go. I'd like you to spend 10 minutes writing up your answer to question 3. You might want to pause the PowerPoint as you do that. Okay, so we're on to question 4 now. Language paper 1, question 4. This is the essay question. This is a longer question worth 20 marks, and we suggest you spend about 25 minutes on this question. So an example question is, focus this part of your answer on the second half of the source from line 20 to the end. I'd like you please to mark that off now. We only need to think about from line 20 to the end. Line 20 starts, there was a thin, crisp, continuous patter. It's the bottom paragraph, if you've got the booklet, on page 17, and it goes to the end. Then we get a statement. A student, having read this section of the text, said, "The writer makes this part of the story very dramatic. To what extent do you agree with this statement?" Write about your own impressions of the hound, evaluate how the writer has created these impressions, and support your opinions with quotes from the text. That's really important. This needs to be a longer answer, obviously, because it's worth 20 marks. So it's asking us to think about how the writer has made this part of the story very dramatic. Well, I would agree that this is a very dramatic part of the story. And we need to think about how well the writer has used methods to create this impression. What language devices have been used? So let's think about other words for dramatic so we don't keep saying that in our answer. So we could have words like sudden, striking, remarkable, exceptional. And then you need to decide whether you agree or disagree. I've already said I agree that this is dramatic. So I'd like you to read that section again, line 20 to the end, and highlight anything that shows this is very dramatic. Pick out 3 or 4 quotes to back these ideas up and think about what the effect of these language devices is. So we could pick things out like we've got the dreadful shape, we've got that pre-modifying adjective dreadful, we've got the repetition of the word hound, we've got the idea that fire bursts from its open mouth, we've got the savage, appalling and hellish. These are all adjectives used to describe this, which make it very, very dramatic.